Okay, we're live.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I will now call to order the Committee of the Whole work session to set the agenda for February 2021. Roll call, please.
Miss Bibla. Here. Mr. Boone.
Here.
Mr. Brogna.
Here.
Mr. Costello.
Here.
Mrs. Haddix.
Here.
Mrs. McCurdy.
Here.
Mrs. McGovern.
Here.
Mr. Swank.
Here.
And Mrs. Spath.
Here.
All members present.
Mr. Mahalik, roll call on administrators, please.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. Good evening, good afternoon, members of the Board of Education. Great to see everyone. We have, of course, Mr. Blanchard is with us as always. We have Mrs. Gregory is with us, elementary principal from Rice. We have Mr. Bard with us. That's our business manager. Mr. Brummagem is our director of buildings and grounds. I see Mr. Gorham with us tonight. Mr. Gorham will be joining us for a little bit, then he'll be off to Berwick as we get ready to celebrate a major accomplishment from one of our student athletes, Ryan Perkowski will be looking to have his 1,000-point scored this season. Ryan's a tremendous young man, a great student, recently committed to Bloomsburg University to continue both his academics and his education. But Mr. Gorham will be leaving shortly as we anticipate Ryan getting his 1,000-point tonight. So thank you, Mr. Gorham, for standing in for all of us tonight. We also have Mrs. Harris with us, our supervisor of behavioral health and supports. We have Mr. Early with us, Mr. Early. We have Mr. Sayre with us. Mr. Sayre, of course, is our elementary principal at Fairview. We have Mrs. Foster with us. Mrs. Foster is, of course, our secondary principal as well. And I'm just looking at the screen. I believe that is everyone that is here, Mr. Boone. And if I may, just real quick, Mr. Boone, members of the Board of Education, we did, as you know, members of our community begin our phase 1 reopening plan this week. Met with some challenges with the weather, but nonetheless, the kids were back. You know, we had a great few days with them. The staff did tremendous. We obviously are adhering to our health and safety plan strictly, social distancing, masking, looking at the guidance and the updated guidance that is coming our way. There is, as you know, a call for double masking. So as an administration, we're looking at that as well. We know some of our students have difficulties even wearing a single mask, those with, issues that make that almost unbearable. So we're working through those and continue following the guidelines as closely as possible as it relates to the social distancing and the health and safety plan that we have been following since the beginning of the school year. Phase 2 begins next week. So we're looking forward to that. Hopefully this weather will be leaving us and a different pattern will be coming in. And then on March 1st, phase 3, which is the return of our elementary students. For our parents, our building administrators each week put out wonderful newsletters. Please look at them, check on them. They will provide you any and every bit of information that you need to prepare for the reopening phase and where your child fits within that. So each and every Friday, all 3 buildings put out a tremendous newsletter, and I thank them for that. Also like to add that we created a nice new resource. This came out of our Supervisor of Special Health, Mrs. Harris, create the Zen Room. The Zen Room is a series of resources for our staff, our students, our families. As we know, this pandemic has hit so many of us in so many ways, but even pre-pandemic, you know, that we've seen an uptick in mental health issues within our community. And it's one other resource. It's certainly not everything we're relying on, but it is another great resource. We'll be adding to it. We've asked our staff and our community if they have resources they'd like to share. We would love to put them in the Zen Room. You could access the Zen Room by going to our website as well as our Facebook, and that will take you to the direct link. Mr. Blanchard, thank you for allowing that to take place. He was able to get that where you don't even require a Crestwood login, and you could still get to the Zen Room. We are proud and excited to announce the launching of our esports. Mr. Zabagoski, Mr. Ambozi have been working on this. It is officially up and running. The season begins on, I believe, March 2nd, 8-week season, 3 days a week. Mr. Zabagoski has put out some tremendous resources. We have great interest. Now we know that interest is going to grow once the students see just how, how much fun and exciting and this is. I also want to state to our community that right now it is for grades 9 through 12. We have all the intentions to moving this down to our younger students. We did want to start with our 9 through 12 to just do it right. We're working with Play Versus, and we want to make sure we're doing it right and not taking on more than we can, because we really want the kids to have a great experience. And we want to also be able to coach the students. If you're like me, I really don't understand esports. I am learning so much about it. But what I do understand is the millions and millions of dollars a year that colleges set aside to students in scholarships for esports. This is a tremendously large business. And why our kids might enjoy it, and it might be something that they spend a lot of time doing to our families, I say to you, number one, we created these games. Our generation created esports. So our kids are enjoying something that we created for them. And also, Mr. Zabagoski pointed out to me, as I'm sure many people watched the Super Bowl this weekend, and if you know Jim, you know that he's a person that studies all this, really useful information somewhere. But 1% of what you saw on Sunday evening, and that's the players and that's the game, 1% makes up the NFL. 99% of the NFL are not people on the field playing. It is the people behind the scenes. It's the people doing the graphics. It's the people doing the streams across the country, the marketing. It's a tremendously large industry, as we know, $1 billion industry, where only 1% are actually playing the game. And the rest of them are really having a background of the things of like we're teaching with esports. So I will admit, I'm learning every day about esports. And for me, the idea of connecting students to their school who otherwise probably wouldn't connect to our school with extracurriculars, that just pleases me tremendously. I think the students are going to love the equipment that we're bringing in, and we are really making a tremendous room for our esports. So March 2nd, it begins, or March 1st. I'm not exactly sure. I know, again, there's lots of information out there. 8 weeks, 3 days a week. They're playing a whole bunch of different categories of the game. But again, for the parents who think it's just games, there's just so much more to it. And I'm sure Mr. Zabagowski and Mr. Ambosi would love to share that information with you. So please reach out to them if you have any interest in learning more about it. WVIA, our Scholastic Scrimmage Bowl, we have appointed our 2 club advisors, Mrs. Kuhn, Maria Coons, and Mr. Jeff Bellis. Mrs. Coons the other day mentioned to me that, and she's a tremendous teacher, was very fortunate she came with us this year, and just, you know, has, her kids are so engaged. But she said to me, Mr. Mahalik, these kids probably know more about this than I do. She said, I said, I know, I get it, Mrs. Coons. They are probably a little bit ahead of this stuff on a lot of the categories, but the guidance that Maria and Jeff are going to provide our kids and the opportunities to be able to compete with other school districts is tremendous. So we're looking forward to the WVIA Scholastic Scholarship Bowl. I believe they have their students who have shown interest, and they are getting to the point now of where they're going to be doing a competition to see the 6 students that we are going to ultimately have on our team. And then finally, the Unified Sports Track and Field is also up and running. If you have an interest in participating, it is a spring sport. If you have an interest, please reach out to our coaches. Mrs. Ashley Prest is our head coach. Mr. Jeff and Mr. Arcangeli, our Mr. Jeff Paratoni is our assistant, and Mr. Arcangeli is our other assistant. Any students that have an interest in being a part of the Unified Sports, please reach out to our coaches. So, Mr. Boone, with that, we are, again, we're so grateful to the community for their support. We're happy to be a part of the reopening phase, and phase 2 next week, phase 3 just a short time after. Again, the floor back to you, Mr. Boone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mahalik. At this time, we will start our committee reports. First up, financial planning, Mr. Brogna.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. First, we'll have a roll call. Mr. Swank.
Here.
Mrs. Haddix.
Here.
All right, all 3 members are present. I'll be seeking approval of the minutes from January 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Our next item on the Financial Planning Committee agenda is a presentation from ESS, and to introduce them, I'll turn this over to Mr. Bard.
Hi, thank you. This is the presentation is from I think it's Mr. Early from ESS is going to present on substitute teachers. Mr. Mahalik had asked me to enter them on there, and they're going to do a presentation regarding acquiring substitute teachers. So without further ado, I will let Mr. Early go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. And if I may, I would like to thank Mr. Early and his team for being here. Just a little background, I think most people know, substitutes in public education are very, very difficult to come by in all areas, from paraeducators to our office assistants to our teachers. Very difficult. Crestwood School District has not relied on a staffing agency in the past. And in the past, I think we were in a position where we had a good group of substitutes that were consistently able to take our open slots. That's changing. The pandemic certainly hasn't helped, and we anticipate when we are full blown again that a lot of the substitutes that we have will probably still want to sit out, probably another year just to see how everything shakes out with this situation. So we are grateful to have Mr. Early and his team here. ESS has a phenomenal reputation, and we'd like them to just discuss what they could possibly do for us. So, Mr. Early, thank you for joining us, and I give you the floor.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm actually going to turn it over to Casey, who is VP of Business Development, and he's going to, go over some of the inner workings of ESS and things along those lines, and then I'll touch base a little bit more on the local geographics right after he's done. So, Casey, I'm going to turn it over to you. Casey, I think you're still on mute.
Got it. So first and foremost, can everybody see my screen?
We can. Thank you.
Give me 1 second. Bear with me. All right. Well, first of all, thank you for letting ESS present, our substitute staffing management program to the committee and administration. My name's Casey Show. I'm the Vice President of Business Development. You just heard from Jamie early. He's our regional manager, and also on the line from ESS is Andy Hall. He's our Executive Vice President. One of the things why we think we're very successful in the state of Pennsylvania is because our local presence. We have over 114 school districts, I will show you on the next slide, throughout the state of Pennsylvania. But why we're successful is because we do it locally. Jamie, Carly, and Bethany all live in Luzerne County, and they're the ones responsible for all our districts in Luzerne. That is very important to us, because they know the community, they know the schools around here, and they know how to recruit the right people. So we were very successful because of our local presence. We'll get into that in a little bit. As I mentioned, we have 114 partner districts throughout Pennsylvania. Each dot represents one of our partnering districts. But all we do is focus on K through 12 public education. We're not a staffing company. We're not temp agencies. We don't do light industrial. We only focus on K through 12 public education. And we've been around for 21 years. Last year, or actually currently, we have almost 13,000 substitutes throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And we also do permanent paraprofessionals, TA, PCAs, whatever the district calls them, currently over about 2,000 placements throughout our districts as well. And last year, during a pandemic, we almost filled 400,000 placements for all these partnerships, which we all know is a very challenging year. But that's all great and dandy, what we are, as a, a national company and throughout the state of Pennsylvania. But let's drill down more of local. Right now, we have 5 local districts in Luzerne. We partner with the IU, with Dallas, Wilkes-Barre, Hanover, Greater Nanticoke. So we've been here about 5 years, our team. So we do have a good sub-pool that we're building up, and it continues to grow. And this is when I'm going to pass it back over to Jamie, because he's our local team. He's going to tell you a little bit about how we recruit in this area and how we're able to get these subs working on a daily basis. Jamie?
Thanks, Casey. Like Casey mentioned, we all do live in the area. Bethany actually graduated from, if I'm not mistaken, Wyoming Valley about 8 years ago. I myself, I graduated from a small school in Schuylkill County called Mahanoa area, but my kids attend Hazleton Area School District. I coach T-ball for Valley as well as football for the Valley Chiefs. And I sit on their board. So we're all from the area, which in my opinion has us more invested in what we do compared to being somebody from, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours away that really has no community roots or involvement. My team has done a great job ramping up recruiting over the last year. Last year, we probably did just under 60 new teacher hires alone. Right now, year to date, we're probably at about 28 with the same, just looking at the teachers' numbers. And in my eyes, that's a huge win considering we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have the guest teacher program, which allows anybody with a bachelor's degree to become a day-to-day substitute. We have our own trainers that provide that training. They're all PDE approved. And what we did is once the pandemic hit, we switched it over to virtual. So now we could do it at the drop of a hat via Zoom. At any given time if we need to, which has been great for us to continue to supply, our local districts with the demand that they need to cover these positions, because there's a lot out there. We all know it. I know you guys are feeling it every single day as well. So, my team's been great. Bethany really, she spends a lot of time going over all the clearances, making sure that they are the accurate and compliant ones for the Department of Ed. And then we house those all for any local district to receive a copy of if they need to. And believe it or not, a lot of my background is admissions and recruiting for higher education. I actually worked with McCann School of Business for probably about 6 years and spent 2 other years in Virginia helping another college make an accreditation shift. And what works for us up this way is grassroots. We don't focus a lot on the big Indeed ads. We focus a lot more on Facebook, referrals, word of mouth, and local events. And that's where we've been fortunate enough to capture a large pool of our substitutes. With that being said, not only do you have a local team that's going to be aiding you in the recruiting and obviously onboarding, and our team behind me, which brings us to Andy Hall, who could kind of probably go over a little bit about what overall ESS could help the district with.
Thanks, Jamie. One thing that he just didn't mention is a $75 referral. He mentioned the referral program, but we actually pay our subs $75. If they refer a sub and they work for us, they can earn up to $2,700 a year. And that is one of the best forms of recruiting is, word of mouth and people they know, especially in your community. And we also extend this to your teachers as well. Teachers can refer somebody that they think is a good fit as a substitute. We'll pay them $75 as well. But one of the questions you guys probably have as a district and the board is, hey, if we partner with you guys, what's going to happen to our current subs? And the answer is nothing. We're going to hire every single one of the subs that are working in your district right now. We're going to pay them the same. However, we're going to offer them a little bit more. We're going to give them weekly pay. We're going to give them health benefits, dental, vision, 401k plan. We have a live person that they call from 6 in the morning till 9 at night if they need to talk to somebody. We have ongoing training if they want to continue their work and education. And we also try to develop and recognize them, through employee of the week, employee of the month, employee of the year. And as you can see, one of the substitutes got an employee of the month and received a little flat screen TV. And also, if a district really likes one of our substitutes, you guys can hire them full time. We do not charge for that. That is a part of our program. And that is why Jamie and his team partner with our local colleges and universities, because we're helping their education majors get full-time employment in the schools. So a lot of our subs do get hired full-time with some of our partnering districts. And again, we don't charge for that. So one thing that we did learn is that you guys just purchased Frontline Absent Management System, better known as ASAP. We use the same system. So your annual cost for ASAP will go away. That is a part of our fee. So you will experience a savings for your Frontline system. And we're going to take over that cost. So we're going to pull reports for you. We actually hired 2 people from Frontline. They know this system better than anybody. They're really going to dig in your system. We're going to make some recommendations, whether maybe things that work, maybe things that don't work. We're also going to maybe help you guys build a bridge for your HIRS system to the Frontline system. So, you're not manually entering your absences or tracking your absences. There's a way that you can build a bridge so they talk to each other and you only have to put it in one. If you put it in one place, it talks to the other and vice versa. And we're also going to look at reports. So we're really going to dive into this ASAP data. We're really going to analyze when your absences are being, put into the system. Is it a middle school problem? Is it an elementary school problem? A high school problem? Is it a morning of problem? Are people calling out the morning of? We're really going to, look at these absent reasons and times of why they're put in. And we're going to come up with a plan to make sure we have a sub that covers this well. It might be a building-based substitute, meaning we're going to send somebody to the building every single day outside the ASAP system. So when the school starts, the principal has a person that they can auto slot in an unfilled position, or that person can go to the middle school or high school or wherever that person is needed. We're going to, make recommendations of how many people you guys might need. So maybe there's elementary is the problem, or actually probably high school is the problem. We might hold a local recruiting event just for the high school to try to get people working in the high school. But this is what this Frontline system is all about. You guys just got it, so you guys are probably just, working out the kinks now, but we can help you with all this stuff, build some systems that you guys aren't even used to. Here's some of the reports up right now, some of the things that we can do. But ASAP is a great system. Frontline is a great system, and we really can go with any report that you guys. So I'm going to kick it over to Andy. He's going to talk to you a little about the transition and the implementation process.
Thanks, Casey. And the transition is really critical when we go into a new district in order to meeting with everyone from the current substitutes to the administration to the back-end office on how the system works. And we'll sit down and we'll walk through originally, take us a couple hours to walk through all those phases and schedule meetings and times where we're going to meet with all your existing substitutes. Right now, we've been doing it virtually, but once we get to in person, we like to do that also. And we'll make the transition from Crestwood to ESS, very simple for them, and walk them through that process. In addition, we'll sit down with the finance team and we'll walk through the process of what does our invoicing look like and how is that going to work? Because the nice part is that payroll piece that you guys currently do now will go away, and that'll be on us along with all the insurance, the liability, the workers' comp, and different things like that. In addition, we'll sit down, as Casey said, and sit down with the Frontline Absence Management Program and look at that program on how it works today. And nothing will change on your end. The sign-ins that your current teachers have, your current administration have, will not change. However, what we want to do is enhance that process on how it works and how you guys can use the system, as Casey mentioned. So we'll go through the various, and then obviously we're going to build our recruiting plan, as Jamie talked about, and really drill down on what's going on inside the area and where we can find new substitutes. And we're very proud of the guest teacher program that we spoke about in order to find, in addition to certified teachers, bachelor's degree substitutes that want to work in the district. We're also very proud of our training program. We've built a pretty extensive training program so that every substitute that goes into the school goes through our training program and understand they're graded by our trainer during the process. So we don't put anybody into the classroom for the first time that isn't trained or comfortable with going into the right position. And that's where Jamie and his team will work with the district and our substitutes to make sure they do go into the right substitute position, whether they're comfortable in elementary, middle school, high school, special education. So, and then get out, our team will get out and talk to all the principals and the administration and work with them on the current needs. And then we can grow the program from there. But it'll take us, about 30 to 45 days to do that, to get it up and running. And, we're excited. Thank you, Casey.
And there's one other thing that we forgot to mention. I mean, day one of the partnership, when we go live with you have access to every single one of our subs in the area. So if you decide to partner with ESS, day one, when we go live, when a teacher puts in Crestwood, every sub in the area of Luzerne will be able to see that job and accept that job. Now, your current subs, if they, a principal or teacher really likes a sub, we can put them, or one of your current subs, we can put them on a preferred list. So they'll get the notification first before it gets released out to the. But that's all we have. This is just the last slide of some of the things that, we offer that we talked about. But I'll stop here and just open up the questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you. This is Jim Brogna. Just wanted to ask first if any of our committee members have any questions. Any of our other board members have questions about the ESS proposal? Mr. Mahalik, do we have any questions from the community at this time about their recommendations?
At this time, we do not have any questions for ESS. If I may, Mr. Brogan, I just, to the team, so I know you're not as familiar yet with us. I don't even believe we provided any data to you, but knowing the area, and I know you're in the area, what do you anticipate you could provide us on a daily basis? And again, I know this is a difficult question, but 10 slots a day. I'm talking about our professional staff.
So when we partner with a new district, I can say this without knowing the numbers. We see, or the district can experience anywhere from a 15 to 20% increase of what you're currently doing now. Without actually knowing the numbers. So if the district is currently placing 5 placements right now on a daily basis on an average, I mean, we're comfortable probably getting you up to 8 or 9. But without looking at the data and seeing it, it's hard to commit. But I can give you an average of what we see across the state.
And one of the things that we've been successful, especially during the pandemic, is putting building-based subs in each of the schools, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. And what they do is they pick up those last-minute absence call-outs in the morning. So they're not placed into a job until the morning of. So if we had 1 per school, we would always know we would have 1 extra sub per school every day to plug in as we go along. So just really look at the needs that you have, and then if it's 10 a day, that would be our goal to start with.
Excellent. We do have a question from our community. This comes from Rob Osicki. I hope I said that right, Rob. I apologize if not. is this voluntary for the subs or mandatory? So his question is, say he's already on our sub list, is it voluntary for him to join ESS or mandatory? And I think you did speak about that a little bit, but
It's I mean, we can't. I mean, it's voluntary to come over from the district to us if they want to continue to sub with Crestwood.
excellent. And I just point out, and I certainly don't ever want to lose any of my substitutes, but one of the benefits to the substitutes, if we don't have an open spot for a day or 2 days, you might have a spot for them in a neighboring school district as well, correct?
Absolutely.
Correct. Yeah, we don't limit hours work, so they can work as many days as they want.
I appreciate this, gentlemen. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll certainly discuss this. Mr. Mahalik, thank you. I'd like to move on to our next presentation. This is Brian Kozlonsky from Stevens and Lee discussing our refinance. Brian?
Good afternoon, everybody. What I'd like to do is let Mike Van, your financial advisor, go through the numbers, and then we can talk briefly about the resolution. So, Mike, if you can jump on there.
Yeah, my apologies. I had some small technical difficulties. Thanks for everyone for having us. What we have before you is an opportunity as the school district's financial advisor. We're in constant contact with Peter and your administration, monitoring the outstanding debt portfolio. And one of the issues is the 2015 issue that is become currently callable, which means just like a mortgage, you can refinance that without any prepayment penalty right now. The current 2015 bonds go out to amortize to September of 2030. And what we have in front of you is an opportunity based on current market to refinance that from the current market rate to a lower interest rate out to 2030 as well, not extending any debt, just going from a higher interest rate to a lower interest rate. And as you can see, the vast majority of the savings would be realized in fiscal year 22-23, just the way the debt amortizes, with some realized in fiscal year 21-22. So about 60,000 in 21-22 and about 265,000 in 22-23. Over the life, it's approximately 340,000 of net savings. These are net of all fees and expenses associated with the refinancing. And just to give you some background, the 2015 bonds are currently outstanding in an amount of $6,110,000. Based on current market rates, we would issue approximately $6,045,000 worth of bonds and be able to take those out in full. The current interest rate, the average interest rate on the outstanding 2015 bonds is 2.73%. And the estimated net interest cost, which is the net interest cost after all fees of the refunding bonds, would be 1.39%. So you're looking at going from 2.73% to approximately 1.39%. The rates have started to start moving back up as the vaccine is rolled out and some positive economic news starts filtering through the markets. However, if the school board would like to consider this, they could consider this as early as the February 18th meeting. And we could be in a position to lock in the savings or price the bonds shortly thereafter. Like I said, we're not extending the debt. We're going a simple high to low refinancing. We're not adding anything. It would just be to refinance the existing 2015 bonds and then pay the cost of issuing the new debt.
Michael, I have positioned the board. I have everything set up to position the board to lock in the rates if they choose to on the 18th.
All right.
So they're prepared. So just so that's clear to the school board that they're positioned to lock in if they choose to on the 18th.
And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Brian. I'm asking our finance committee, Mr. Schwank or Ms. Haddix, if they have any questions.
None. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. If you have no questions, I'm inviting the rest of the board to ask questions about this proposed refinance. And then, of course, Mr. Mahalik, if there's any questions based on this presentation and what is presented for the community.
This time there is no questions, Mr. Brogna.
And this is Brian. The only thing I wanted to mention is, as we've done on all your previous debt issues, there is a pre-enactment ad that will be placed in the paper that has to be there before you could take action on the 18th. That is scheduled to be in on Sunday's edition, I believe. So you'll be all set to go with the resolution on the 18th. We'll have the rest of the documentation there to be signed after that meeting. We'll file it with the state after that. So we're really have all that paperwork ready to go to move this as quickly as we can and take advantage of the market as it is.
Gentlemen, thank you for the presentation. Obviously, it's very important to look at when rates are at the right time and not extending the debt as Michael had commented, but more importantly, saving the school district money. And so we appreciate your presentation.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I will be recommending moving forward the following to next week board vote, and it'll be points 1 and 2 under item 6, and asking if there's any questions on either of those points from the committee.
Done. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a note of number 2. The cost shouldn't be 70. I mean, the cost will not exceed $7,225. It should be more around $5,000, but there's a range in the contract with Conrad Siegel. So I wanted to put that not to exceed $7,200. It should be somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000. But I just wanted to make note that it may go up that high if it's a complex calculation, but it's something that we have to do every year for the GASB 75. It has to do with our net pension liability as well as our absence or an absence liability as well. So when you look at our audit book that was sent out to you guys last month, that GASB liability isn't done by Baker Tilly, that's done by Conrad Siegel, and that's where this comes from. That's what this is for, just so you guys are aware of it.
Thank you, Mr. Bard. Do we have any questions on either of those points 1 or 2 from the rest of our board? And then, Mr. Mahalik, if there's any concerns or questions on those items before we go to the discussion items, which will be led by Mr. Bard.
None at this time, Mr. Brogna.
Item 7 under the Financial Planning Committee agenda discusses 3 very important items for our school district, and the first and foremost would be the governor's proposed budget and what the potential impact would be for the Crestwood School District. We also have a policy that will be reviewed and presented by our policy committee that includes our digital sign, and then the upcoming budget meetings, which that time might not be correct at this point. We are going to have public budget meetings again, I believe, starting March 1st. Mr. Bard, would you lead those 3 discussion points?
Sure. On the first point, the discussion of the governor's proposed budget, the governor has proposed one of the biggest increases in education spending in the state's history. However, as many of you have probably read, it has met extreme opposition by Republican legislators and has been declared dead on arrival in the legislature due to the tax increases that would pay for some of the increases that are called for to pay for some of that education increase in spending. And I'm going to break this down a lot for you guys in the budget meeting that'll come up on March 1st. But in essence, what this does for Crestwood is it'll probably lead to an increase in state subsidy money for Crestwood of about $140,000. So it's not a game changer in essence for Crestwood. And unfortunately, some school districts, it creates new winners and losers. Crestwood is on the winning side, but barely. So it's not so in essence, it's going to create new winners and losers. But there is a formula that they go by. There's 3 different sets of things that the governor's trying to do in this thing, and it is a well thought out, well formulated plan. But unfortunately, because of our Title I basic poverty breakdown and stuff of that nature, we don't get as much money, or we don't benefit as much as some other school districts will in the funding formula. And that's kind of be where we're kind of at, and that's what I've raised my concern to PASBO, and and there's been other business managers across the state of Pennsylvania that have echoed it because they've asked for our feedback on it in the fair funding formula, or the quote unquote fair funding formula, because it doesn't allow for districts that have the balance that we have, the 65-35, 67-32 split that kind of Crestwood has. It doesn't give us enough of a bump up that we should be getting to take some of the burden off our local tax base, and still unloads a lot of the tax base, or a lot of the burden on the local effort, which is the local taxes from real estate transfer taxes and stuff of that nature. Speaking of local, by the way, I want to mention, speaking of local transfer tax, there was a sale in the industrial park. I haven't gotten confirmation from the county courthouse of this yet, but there has been a sale in the industrial park of a parcel that was well over $1 million in the industrial park, and Crestwood should get a tax transfer in the amount of $177,000 that will help us for this tax base year. So that will help us and go over. That was unexpected and unanticipated. So that will help us for this budget year, the 2021 budget year. So that's something positive news to discuss as well. But in terms of the governor's budget, it's dead on arrival in the legislature. It's going to have to be tweaked. And given the fact that it's a very radical, very drastic change, I don't exactly know where they're going to start, where they're going to go from. So we just have to hope and hope that it reaches a fair and equitable conclusion in July, so there's no delay in getting us the money, our subsidy money. So for the discussion of the digital sign and advertising policy, I think we'll let that for the policy committee. When we get to that point, we can have a discussion on that, because I think there's some great points that were made. I think that'll be made during that committee meeting. So I think we'll wait on that. And then for the discussion of the upcoming budget meeting, there was some difficulty in getting. I would like all the board members to be present, and and enough lead time for all the board members to be present. So I think we're going to change that. So Mr. Boone, as the board president, what is your thinking of scheduling that meeting? And if you want to ask the board members now, while 9 of them are present here, what their best opportunity would be.
The feedback I got.
Talk about meetings moving forward and put a schedule out March 1st, and then advertise the entire schedule on March 1st. And that gives Mr. Brogdon, Mr. Boone, and everyone we do get about a $60,000 savings in this refinancing. So there is a little bit of savings, and any little bit helps. So I think we've been planning for next year being the really difficult year. And so this is just, so I think Bob and I we're ready to start this discussion and moving forward with the board on this. And I think we're gonna be, we're hoping that everybody participates and comes to the meeting and puts their